Great. So for years, people have lamented the fact that New York has lagged behind both Boston and San Francisco as a major life science hub, despite being home to the greatest scientific institutions and medical centers in the world. All of that has been quietly changing over the last 15 years, as you heard from Doug Theed of the New York City EDC, Loretta Bine of Empire State Development, and several of the developers who are building these developments throughout the city. Life science growth is gathering new momentum. But where is that growth actually taking place in the New York marketplace? Next slide, please. As we've seen in other clusters, the industry grows in clusters around academic medical centers where NIH funding is concentrated, scientific talent is located, and research is being done. It's increasingly in urban environments where scientists and tech workers want to live. Nearly 80% of life science location decisions are based on proximity to universities and R&D ecosystem necessary to attract employees. In 2016, in an effort to promote the development of life sciences in New York City, a number of city agencies issued a life sciences memorandum intended to expand the areas for life science uses in most commercial areas by allowing these uses in zones 17 and 9A. This slide shows the effect of that guidance by showing the expanded areas in the city now open for business when it comes to the expansion and development of life science uses. You can see there in the middle slide, the lighter areas in blue, which were previously designated zone 17, manufacturing. Those were the only zones previously allowed for life sciences in the city. And with the zoning memorandum clarification, the darker blue now has opened additional areas to life sciences. And if you look on the right throughout the boroughs, you can see where those use groups are spread. So this has really increased the number of areas where life science can happen. Next slide, please. Just as happened in Cambridge, Mass. Over the course of development of its life science cluster, a number of subclusters are developing around academic hubs in Manhattan, flanked by 2 ground-up development opportunities in live, work, play environments for millions of square feet of commercial life science space in Long Island City and Jersey City. Next slide. The East Side corridor consists of Mount Sinai, Academic Alley, Long Island City, Midtown East, and Hudson Square, which is the nexus between the east and west sides of Manhattan. Next slide. The West Side corridor stretches from the Bronx Hutchinson Metro Center down to Columbia Presbyterian in the north, then through Manhattanville, Midtown West, Hudson Square, and on to Jersey City. Next slide. This area consists, this is the Mount Sinai East Side corridor. Just zooming in a bit. This area consists primarily of academic medical institutions, which you see in pink, and educational institutions in purple, but is becoming a hub for artificial intelligence, precision wellness, and robotics. We will, next slide. Further on down in the East Side corridor, we have Academic Alley. This area of the city is the largest concentration of academic medical centers in pink in New York City, with some educational institutions in purple and a smattering of life science commercial companies in orange. Rockefeller, Sloan Kettering, Weill Cornell Medicine, and more are all here. We can see the development of a commercial life science opportunity being pursued by the New York Blood Center, there in the center of the screen in red. And finally, we have Cornell Technion off to the right, which provides the bridge between Academic Alley and a major commercial live, work, play opportunity in Long Island City. Next slide. Here you can see the Silver Cup Properties, a potential commercial hub development site in thatched red, really the gateway for academic alley institutions into Long Island City, where speculative commercial developments are being built by King Street Properties in Court Square and Alexandria, which are highlighted in red a little bit more to the right here. Next slide. Moving on down, we have the Midtown East in the East Side corridor. We have NYU Langone and Bellevue Hospital in pink, surrounded by New York City's largest concentration of commercial life science space in red, and potential new projects in thatched red. The Alexandria Life Sciences Center with the third tower coming online. Alexandria's Pfizer property, which could be developed into life science space over the next 5 years. 345 Park Avenue South, where Deerfield Management is developing their $635 million life sci innovation campus called The Cure. We also see the Public Health Building and the adjoining Hunter College Nursing Campus, which represents another potential commercial development opportunity in this area. Next slide. Hudson Square is the nexus between East and West, with a large concentration of commercial tech and life science uses in red. Google Hudson Square is being built here. The New York Genome Center, J Labs, and NYC Biolabs, two of NYC's most recent incubators, are also here. And there's a developing potential new life science opportunity with the Life Science Center at Pace University. Next slide. On the WESTSIDE corridor, as we heard from Simone Healthcare Development last Friday, they are building a mixed-use life science development called the Bronx Hutchinson Metro Center, right next to Einstein Medical School and Montefiore Medical Center. This development will connect Lower Manhattan with development happening in suburban Westchester County. Next slide. At Columbia Presbyterian, which is Columbia's main campus, they have many academic medical centers and educational institutions, but little commercial development at this moment. This cluster is also the most isolated from other clusters except by water, but water taxis could connect this cluster to all other subclusters in Manhattan in less than 1/2 hour. Next slide. Manhattanville is home to Columbia's lower campus, including the Jerome Green Science Center, the New York Structural Biology Center, and CUNY Center for Discovery and Innovation. There's also a commercial life science development called the Manhattanville Factory District, which we heard about on Friday, which consists of both ground up and refurbished buildings. Harlem Biospace, one of the city's incubators, lives in the Manhattan Factoryville district. Next slide. Midtown West consists primarily of the Hudson Research Center at 519 West 54th Street, which houses the New York Stem Cell Foundation and HyberCell, together with other medical uses. But there's an intriguing new life science commercial development opportunity at 77 West 66th Street, recently vacated by Disney. Next slide. And finally, back to Hudson Square, which also serves as the nexus between the East and West Side corridors and the opening or gateway to Jersey City. Next slide. Jersey City represents the other ground-up potential commercial life development site and is the gateway for pharma companies and New Jersey academic medical institutions to take advantage of the proximity to Manhattan. And there's a lot of new activity happening there, which will be announced in coming months. Next slide. So this slide basically sums up the New York City, New Jersey supercluster, which is continuing the legacy of the early pioneering efforts of life science in New York City. Next slide. Just to remember where we came from in the very, very early days, this is a picture of Schmerhorn Hall, which was built in the late 1890s to house the scientific departments at Columbia. It was here in the fly lab that Thomas Hunt Morgan and his team studied mutations in the Drosophila fruit fly, which led them to the discovery that genes are arranged on chromosomes, revolutionizing the world of genetics. Next slide. And this is Flexner Hall at the Rockefeller Institute, circa 1917. The Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research was founded in 1901 by a gift from John D. Rockefeller and has a legacy of unmatched discovery with 26 Nobel laureates, one just announced this year. In 1944, Oswald Avery and his team first isolated the substance of heredity, DNA, although its structure would not be known until 1953 in this building.